Go Montessori, this is Brian.
Hey Brian, it's Jono calling from Hubbli.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Okay, great. Am I catching you at a good time to chat for a few minutes?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. So listen, I just wanted to circle back and check in with you. I know there was a couple weeks off, and there's just been um, a list of communications and stuff between Celeste and our team, and I'm not sure how much you've been involved in that, but I just wanted to, just connect and see how you're feeling about everything and get any thoughts from you.
I think it'll be really positive. We just have to get. So we have to now say, okay. So when we change a status, it automatically sends out the email that we want it to,
Hmm.
and so we need to kind of get used to that, and because we were used to doing it another way.
Right.
So I've talked to Celeste about that already, and
Is
I was
she
like, okay,
also
so now.
is Celeste managing that
Well, yeah, between
pipeline?
Celeste and Aaron, they both do the enrollment part, or
Hmm.
the I guess admissions,
Yeah.
and then we have a parent. Although I guess we won't need them anymore. There's a parent volunteer that would come in and help with the paperwork, but you
Hmm.
know
Well,
she hasn't done
hopefully.
that. She hasn't really done that in a couple of months, and I don't think that we'll need it anymore.
Okay. I was wondering, can I ask you some about the enrollment thing? Can I ask you some like specific questions?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. What were the obstacles that would have prevented you from going with the enrollment marketing service?
Well, I mean, money. I think for any non-for-profit Montessori school, spending money when you so when you already have a process in place, and I hate to say this, but whether or not it's actually working,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, it's hard to to make the change. And then I think to when you do have the change, you the fact that then you have to pay for it on top of that, and you can't really see you're like, okay, what am I going to get, like, so what's my value
Hmm.
that I'm adding to this, and then how do I kind of go to the board and say, how do we get this approved, and how do I show them that this is going to make a difference, and you know
Right.
there's so that and that's what I kind of did. That's what I did. So the money piece and the value prop. I'm talking too long now, but the money piece and the value prop are the two kind of you know major things to overcome.
Right.
I think if you were if you're like we're about 130 kids. If you're slightly larger than we are, like say 150 to 175, and you've been that way for a little bit, you might actually have somebody that's an admissions director slash enrollment slash marketing person. A lot of schools usually
Hmm.
around that 150, 175 mark. So another obstacle there might be that person, right? Because their job might change pretty significantly.
Hmm.
So a director would have to get that person on board, and kind of show them, hey, this is going to
Yeah.
actually make your life a hell of a lot easier. Right. But anytime that you have change, a lot of people are still hesitant, even if it's good, which sounds crazy, but change. Anytime that you have change, at least that's been my experience.
Right.
Anytime there's anything that's going to change, people are super like, oh my God, it's going to change. Even if like you're at the pit of hell, and you're like, well, you're actually going to get to climb up the Jacob's ladder, and it's going to be like heaven. But it does, but it's like, but I was used to getting burned all the time.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
but people just get real used to whatever it is they're doing. I guess if you have somebody in that position, they might be an obstacle. They're definitely a stakeholder, and then of course paying for it, and board approval, and showing the board that this is going to
Right.
make our school better. I think those are probably the main.
And what do you find as a result of buying the service now?
Well, I think now that we've got, especially now that I know the automated piece is set up, I know once we fully adopt that into our process and our procedure, it'll make it, a lot easier. I do feel like that tracking page, that's a lot simpler than what we had in the past. So, now that it's kind of, I guess, it's an all-in-one thing. That's what I like about it, is that I don't have to go to a different system or a different place if I want to go see, what enrollment what's happening with enrollment.
And what about the part of just like our team generating these leads?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, Naomi, I think, has done a pretty good job of following up, and she even recently made some changes to our ad campaign, and which I think were great, and she did, and we barely had to talk about it, which was, we did, but it was real quick, and I didn't have to. It wasn't something I had to dwell on, and she's basically like, this ad's not performing as well as it should be. We're going to make these changes. We're going to do this, and I was like, well, that sounds good,
right.
And and then and then I can move on to running the school. So that piece is pretty nice.
Cool.
The thing is that schools aren't typically good at marketing, and there's a good reason for that, because it's just not something that there's almost no internal brain trust that has done that, that can do that and has done it before, especially in I think marketing has changed a lot, in recent time. And so to have somebody on staff that's used to that knows that, that's a luxury that very few schools have.
Right.
Even the big ones, like even the well-established big ones with $5-6 million a year in revenue, a lot of them don't even have, somebody on staff that does that.
Aside from the Facebook ads.
Well, I listed a couple things that I think are huge benefits. Which one is, it is an all-in-one system, at least from my perspective. I know it's easy to connect the dots between the marketing piece and then, the enrollment management piece. Like it just flows. So I think one benefit is just easy access to that information. Easier, for me, at least from my perspective, easier than it ever has been in the past. Let's see. Another thing would be, I think the communication piece, from another huge benefit is, once you get somebody in the system, especially in the management workflow, it's really nice. For me, I can say, like, as a director, I do most of the tours myself. Aaron does a few of them, and so the system automatically reminds me. It automatically reminds the parents, hey, you have an up and coming tour, and so those auto-generated reminders, and then the auto-generated emails that go with it, once they move to a different status. That's a huge help, from a scheduling perspective, and then it's also a time saver. Because I've had parents that have come through for tours already and say, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that your system reminded me, or sent me that email," because people are so busy, and so I think that automated reminders is really nice.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, and then
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. And then, and I'm glad it emails, because it emails me too. And because it's funny, because I'll put it it's in my calendar. My calendar reminds me. Mm-hmm. But as you probably know that the director was. Something's always happening. Like I don't have. Right when I walk in the door at school, I get hit with like a ton of stuff, and so even though it says, "Hey, in an hour you've got a tour," well, there's a ton of stuff that happens in an hour, and so then I get another email. It says, "Hey, you've got a tour." Oh yeah, that's right, I got a tour. Mm-hmm. So I hate to, but the more reminders, kind of the better.
Sure.
So, but now it's funny, because I haven't even really put the tours. I haven't been really putting them as much in my calendar, because I get the emails, and so and they emails me. I think that like the day before, or like the night before, and then I feel like sometimes it emails me in the morning too. But I feel like I get enough reminders. I'm like, okay, I've got 2 tours today, and I've got one at 9:20 and one at 10:20, and they're with these people, and and that's really helpful too because I know exactly who they are, and
So
so
yeah, so
anyway,
it's set up
yeah.
to go. I mean, it can be customized too, just so you know. Like what because it's by hours before the
Yeah,
time.
no,
Yeah.
and we're going to play with that, I think, but it
Yeah,
is just having the reminders is is really helpful. And
that's
then
great.
I guess so I mentioned that, and then another benefit, um, from
That's a
my
lot.
I guess from my perspective, it's pretty simple. I mean, you've coded it, created it. Like I could give you suggestions for stuff to add to it, but I hesitate sometimes because I have designed software. I was a computer engineer.
Right.
You quickly, and when you're a coder too, right? Aren't you? Don't you?
Well, more front end.
Okay. So I've done both, and the problem with adding features, as you know, is that it is a road to hell
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you can create, and if you get a good coder, I can code anything. Well, yeah, you can code
Yeah.
anything, but then the project, the thing, whatever it is that you're doing, can quickly get out of hand,
Hmm.
and you lose the, like I just mentioned, simplicity is nice. Well, the more features you add, the less simple something gets, even if it is nicely laid out. And
Yeah.
because people giving someone too many choices, too many buttons to push, which is what a feature, ultimately a new feature would offer,
Hmm.
is you quickly, you run out of, you run into it can do a lot, but it's like a car. It's like a modern car. If you sit in a brand new, like a 2018 model year car, compared to like let's say a 1970 something. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
unbelievable, right? The number of
Yeah.
choices that a person has in that car. And what's funny is that the car still does the same thing. You drive up and down the road in it. And a
Yeah.
1970s car, as long as it's maintained, would you can still get up and drive up and down the road in it. And but the new cars have all these there's like 100 buttons in there. And
Yeah.
I always laugh about that because I'm like, well, the car, it's still basically driving around.
Hmm.
But you can call someone on Bluetooth, all these other things you can do, which are nice. But I'm like, well, but now we have all these distracted drivers out there that are, running into
Yeah.
people, and I think it's the same way with your coding. Your thing. You can. So I would hesitate. I mean, I can offer you some suggestions, but I hesitate just because of that.
Um, and so another question is, uh, would you recommend this service to others?
Yes, yeah, I would. I already have actually.
Right, and I kind of knew the answer to that, but
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
trying to go through this as a true
Yeah.
sense. Okay, and just like like, is there anything just in general you'd like to add? Like just your own thoughts and that
I
this has all been your thoughts, but I mean, like, is there anything beyond what I've asked that you think I'm missing?
I think you and I have talked about this before, but so Naomi, I don't remember where in the process. Naomi is a fairly recent addition, I think, to your team, right? Or at least
Yes.
from my perspective. So she has helped, I think, from my perspective, with like follow up and just because there's always like questions and things that happen, and
Hmm.
she's pretty on it. You've reached kind of an inflection point with you know what you're trying to do, who you're trying to serve, the how many the troops to task, like how many people you have to do certain things, and where you
Right.
allocate resources and all that. And I get that. So, but I would just say from my perspective, Naomi, almost always like really on top of it. Well, as an example, the form that you fill out that I filled out to have the automated emails and the change the statuses and that sort of thing. She and I had been going back and forth about that for like a week or two, and then I kind of dropped off the radar because a bunch of stuff had come up. So she would gently remind me, hey, we can't really move forward with this until you fill this out. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I got to get that done, and I really want to get this moving forward. She was more on it than I was, as far as just something to keep to get the most out of what we bought. So that's a pretty big thing, because, like I said, I get busy, and there's like 100 things on my list to do, and filling out an enrollment form isn't always at the top. I feel like every time I email her, she emails me right back, like almost within an hour, which is pretty good. I wouldn't, it's almost not quite real time, but it's fairly quick, help and support.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Wonderful. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time to go over this stuff with me.
Yeah, no problem.
And your both positive and constructive feedback is both incredibly valuable. So thanks so much, and I'm sure we'll all be in touch with you real soon.
Yeah.
Many other things.
Thanks, General. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.